Good morning, friends and enemies. Football is officially here. Tomorrow night, we've got Thursday night football, and I need to help y'all decide who to sit, who to start. So we'll be going game by game, all 16 games, talking through every running back that's fantasy relevant in today's video, what I think about them for the upcoming slate of games. We've got Thursday night football. We've got Friday night football. We got Sunday night football. We got Monday night football. We got football for the rest of our lives for the next 6 months. Everything that we've done for the last 3, 4, 6, 7, 17 months doesn't matter up to this point. The only thing that matters is matchups, is getting the right guy into your lineup. So every single Wednesday and Thursday for the remainder of the season, I'll be hitting y'all with my running back rankings for the week and my wide receiver rankings for the week. Running backs on Wednesday, wide receivers on Thursday. We will be going through every single game of every single slate. If you want to skip the bullshit, you can go get the rankings, which are live right now on BDGE.co. All right. If you become a Big Dog member, you will get access to our full list of rankings. That is the only place to get them. But of course, for free, I will always be on YouTube yapping about my feelings, my emotions, and Bijan Robinson. Shout out Jamal Anderson, though. So without further ado, let me present to you the new platform that I will be using for these videos for the 2025 season. Okay, I'm going to give you a quick and brief explanation of how these videos are going to work. I'll do this today. I'll do this tomorrow. You guys let me know how you like the content structure of this. I think this is going to be an absolute fucking home run, grand slam. You remember last year, what I would do is go game by game, and I would basically drag players into a specific tier, and I would drop them, right? And I'm doing the same thing this year. So I have 6 tiers right now, and they are based on how I'm feeling about a specific player, right? Tier 1, must start, obviously going into your lineup. Tier 2, feels good. Feel really good about having them in my lineup. Tier 3, dub flex, right? These are the guys that you're probably deciding between. And these tiers are just about my feelings for them, right? There's going to be a lot of guys in the same tier. And for the most part, it means I feel the same type of way about them. I don't have a huge preference one or the other. But again, if you do want my specific numerical preference on the players, those will be available in the rankings on BDGE.co. Tier number 4 is a shaky flex. Don't feel as great about them, but still suitable for a lineup if needed. Tier 5 is just like the rather not. And tier 6, you're a cone. You're a cone on the field. You're a traffic cone. Go direct something. Some new features that we have implemented in this year's videos. I want to be clear as well. This tool I built for myself. I built on the back end. This is just for content. This tool specifically will not be available to you guys, but I'm hoping that all the information is going to be very, very helpful to you. So there's the drop down up here that obviously lets me select each matchup. Whatever matchup I select will populate all the running backs in that specific game here on the left side. I will be able to drag and drop them into a specific tier. Now, when I select a matchup, if there are weather concerns, they will pop up on the top here. So as you can see, for Dallas at Philly is yellow concern. Green is weather, but we're not overly concerned about it. Yellow, we're starting to get there. There will be some orange games. There will be some red, right? And as the season progresses, weather will become more of a problem. We'll also see the injury and practice reports on the bottom here. I'll eventually have to move myself, but we'll see guys from the Dallas and Philly game. As you could see, some of the players were on the practice report, but ended up playing in full. But you could see a guy like Tanner McKee. He's questionable for the game with a thumb injury, DNP on Monday, DNP on Tuesday, unlikely to play. But Trayvon Diggs, no status from the injury report, fully expected to play for this game. So those are 2 of the features that I'm overly excited about presenting to you guys in this piece of content going forward, is that I'll be able to give you the weather reports in real time as well as the practice reports as long as we have them up to date. Now, a few other cool features on here, of course, is we'll just start, right? We'll start with Saquon Barkley. He's the first player. He's obviously a must start for you. You'll also see the spread of the game here. So Philly, they're -8.5 against Dallas. The over-under the game is 47.5. You'll see these matchup ranks on the bottom, 12, 1, 2. What does that mean? It's a lot of green. You'll see the matchup guide up here. So the first number on the left is fantasy points allowed to the running back. So Dallas allowed the 12th most fantasy points to the running back position last year. The second number is EPA per rush. EPA per rush is kind of this like objective success rate. Hard to explain, easy to go Google if you want to figure it out. And then the third number is points per game allowed. So the defense, Dallas, how many points per game did they allow to the opposing teams? So you're seeing they allowed the 12th most fantasy points to the running back position. They had the very worst EPA per rush, meaning it's a great matchup for running backs. And they allowed the second most points in the NFL to teams last year. Now, obviously, it's week 1. We're going off of data from last season. So most of this is irrelevant for the most part. And of course, we'll update this data as the weeks go by, so you will have the freshest data. You like that I use data and data in the same sentence in a different way? we flexible at here. We've also added this button sponsored by BetMGM. Click on it and bang, the lines populate. Saquon's lines for this week, 13.5 rushing yards, 2.5 receptions, 93.5 rushing yards. So it was obviously a very long-winded intro. We're going to start bucketing players now. If I feel like I need to explain a player in more detail, then I will dive in, but I probably won't go crazy on a lot of the players that are not going to be relevant to your lineups. So you have Javonte Williams here as the next player. He's going to be a relevant fantasy player, at least for the beginning of the season, because he is the starter for Dallas right now. Unfortunately, this is one of the toughest matchups that you're going to find, so he's going to throw himself into the shaky flex start for me. You know what? Let me reposition myself. Much better. Javonte Williams should open the year as the starter. The Philadelphia Eagles are a dynamite defense, as you can see, all red across the board, pretty much top 5 in any category against the run. So I do expect Javonte to get work, but as you can see, the game script, 8.5-point underdogs. That's a little bit terrifying. This game could get out of hand quickly, and they'll need to move away from establishing the run out there in Dallas. So Javonte is much more of a shaky flex for me. I could see a world where he is kind of moving between the dub flex category and shaky flex throughout the year, depending on the matchup. But for week 1, not a guy that I'm dying to get into my lineup. Jadon Blue with the game script could be a guy, but we still need to see what this backfield is going to look like and, who's getting the third down snaps, who's in the 2 and 4 minute drill. He was banged up for a lot of the summer, so we didn't get to see a lot of run with him. So I'm going to put him into the rather not category, and the rest of the guys are going straight into the cone category. All right, so let's move on to the Friday night game, which is KC and LAC. I actually need to reorder these to make sure that makes sense. We've got Isaiah Pacheco going against the Chargers. The Chargers are another really, really tough run defense. Good interior on the line, but I do think Pacheco is going to start off in a relative workhorse role. So he's going to go into the dub flex category. I don't think I feel overly great about him just because of the Chargers defense, and we're unsure about the split between Pacheco, Kareem Hunt, and Brashard Smith out here. If we look at his lines, he is currently projected for 47.5 rushing yards. So he'll go in dub flex. For Omarion Hampton, we're going to put him in feels good, and we're going to put Najee Harris down in the rather not tier. Najee simply just missed too much time that I think it's just going to force Omarion Hampton into a super high volume workhorse role. The Chiefs are obviously a really good defense. As you could see, they allowed the single fewest points to the fantasy running back position in 2024. They're just a really good defense. They're very, very hard to run against, but I just think the volume for Hampton is going to outweigh and outmatch what the efficiency of KC's run defense is. So I feel good about getting into my lineup. Najee, I just think he missed too much time. He's going to need some time to ramp back up into practice shape. He probably still needs to learn the playbook and get some chemistry going with the first team. So no way I'm trotting him out there right now. That's if he even plays. If we look at the practice report, we had Najee Harris as a full participant in Tuesday, and I believe he is expected to suit up, but it could be one of those game time decisions where they're just he's not ready yet, and kind of rule him out last minute. For Kareem Hunt, we're going to put him into rather not for sure. I do think he'll get 30% of the touches in the backfield, but they probably won't be very valuable. Brashard Smith, we have no idea what his role is going to be, so there's no way you can throw him into your lineup in week 1. All right, Arizona and New Orleans. Great matchup for James Conner and the Cardinals against the Saints run defense, which, as you could see, is green across the board. He's going to go right into the must-start tier. The Saints are bad team, bad defense. They are almost 7-point favorites here, so James Conner should be able to establish it. On the flip side, I do think, at least for the beginning of the season, Kamara should be a dude that gets the majority of touches in this backfield for the Saints. And maybe there's a world where Kendre Miller over here carves out a role. I do think he's the backup running back, but for now, there's just no chance he's sniffing your fantasy lineup. So I think it's going to be Kamara. Game script should be relatively bad, as you could see. 7-point favorites for the Arizona Cardinals there. So Kamara should have his relevant pass catching work laid out for him here. Trey Benson, I do think he'll get a little bit of work and he'll be the RB2 in this backfield, but again, there's no way that we are putting him into our lineups in week 1 if he's getting 6 to 8 carries. I just think it's James Conner's world until he proves otherwise. Atlanta versus Tampa Bay. I'm expecting this one to be a shootout. I'm expecting the starting running backs here to kind of explode. It's a 47.5-point over-under. It should be a good game script for all parties involved. So Bucky and Bijan are going straight into the must-start category. Bijan Robinson right now, 80.5 rushing yards. You have 23.5 receiving yards, projected to go over 100 total. Bucky Irving, another one who's around 90 plus total yards in the Bookers. So not going to overthink them. We do have to look at the backups, right? That's more the conversation to be had here. Sean Tucker's going into the cone category. But for Rachaad White and Tyler Algier, they're both going to go into the rather not category. When I think of Tyler Algier, he really is not involved in this Falcons offense whatsoever unless they are dominating game script and can really establish the run. But that's not going to be what happens against Tampa Bay, I don't think. And he never plays in passing situations. Like every once in a while, he gets a lucky goal line carry, but I'm not banking on that to put into my lineup. Even though he could get 8 to 10 touches, they're still going to be non-valuable touches. Rachaad White's an interesting one. Like he tweaked his groin in early August and missed a ton of practice time. Like I do expect him to still have a little bit of a pass catching role, but I don't like the fact that he missed so much time during August. And I could see Bucky having a huge workload split over Rachaad White to start the year. So with Rachaad White, again, I do expect them to be a little bit pass heavy. I do think this is going to be a high scoring game. So I could see Rachaad White getting 4 to 5 targets. If this is a full PPR league, I think you could probably throw him into the shaky flex spot. But for right now, I'm going to be honest with you, I would just rather not throw him into my lineup whatsoever until we see what the actual split is. And I feel like in week 1, it's going to be really heavy in favor of Bucky. Next, we will move to Baltimore at Buffalo. Sorry, I just realized that like the home and away are not properly loading in here. There's obviously a lot of tech going on, so there's going to be some minor glitches, but let me know how you feel about this content overall. Obviously, this is very, very new. I think this is a really cool kind of setup and format for you guys. But if there's any tweaks that you think would make this drastically improved, please just yell them at me in the comments. Derrick Henry's, of course, a must start. James Cook, I'm actually going to throw into the feels good categories. You could see a lot of red here. Like Baltimore's defense is incredible. This is going to be a very high scoring game. James Cook, he's likely going to be the goal line back here. I do still question what his ceiling participation is when it comes to the pass catching role, because Ty Johnson is very involved in 2 and 4 minute drills. And when they're in like pure passing mode, James Cook kind of comes off of the field. He struggled versus Baltimore last year. So when I'm looking at Cook, I think I'm going to throw him into the feels good category because he's obviously like a top 15 guy, but he's not a must start for me. So I think if you have 2 better running back options, especially in full PPR leagues, and he doesn't make it into your starting lineup, I don't think it's that crazy to look elsewhere. The rest of the players are pretty much going into the cone categories. Like, yeah, they might be fun down the stretch at some point. We might see larger roles for Ray Davis and Keaton Mitchell and all of those guys. Like Keaton Mitchell could be interesting, but we don't know if he's going to get more pass catching work than Justice Hill. They're just, I don't think I need to waste time talking to you about this. Is not a fucking waiver wire or a 16-team league. What could possibly happen in week 8 type of video. Carolina at Jacksonville. We've got a little bit of a weather report here. There's a slim chance of a classic Florida pop-up shower or storm, but the coverage looks low, so it likely ends up dry. So not overly concerned with the weather there. We might see some showers, so maybe a little bit more of an emphasis on the run. Chuba, I'm not going to lie, man, he's going into the must-start category for me. Like, got him late in my draft. This is like the matchup you draft him for. Playing against Jacksonville, one of the worst defenses in the NFL, over under a 46.5. Like, I think he enters the year as the worst. If there's a world where like Chuba loses work to Rico or Trevor Etienne, I think it probably happens as the season progresses. But week 1, I think it's all Chuba. I think he gets into the end zone. I think he's probably going to smash. So he's going to be a must start for me. What gets interesting after the Carolina side of things, where we'll throw Rico into the cone. No way you start him. There's no way you start Trevor Etienne either. We look at Jacksonville. I think Tootin is allergic to your lineups, but Tank and Travis Etienne are both interesting to me because the matchup against Carolina is obviously great. Carolina will have Derek Brown back on their defensive line, who is a phenomenal run-stuffing defensive lineman, but we don't exactly know how this backfield shakes up. I think these two are going to start in almost a pure 50-50 split. So neither of them are must starts. I don't think I would say either of them are feels good. I would think about labeling both of them as dub flexes. I think if you're in a standard or half PPR league, I think you could make the case that Tank Bigsby belongs in dub flex. I think if you're in a full PPR league, I do expect Travis Etienne to be the pass catching back. So I would put him in the dub flex. And for both of those scoring, I would flip the opposite. So Tank would move to shaky in PPR and Etienne would move to shaky in half PPR standard. I think for right now, because of the uncertainty, I'm going to put them both in shaky flexes, which means like they're definitely startable, but you don't feel as comfortable with them. But the matchup is just so good. As you can see down there, Carolina allowed the single most fantasy points to the running back position in 2025, second worst EPA per rush, number 1 scoring defense in the entire NFL. So matchup is great, just very, very hard to predict where the game script goes and who actually gets in on the goal line there. I think it will probably favor Tank, but Travis Etienne is still an explosive player who one touch and he can kind of rip off something that makes the fantasy day worth it. Let's move to Chicago and Minnesota. Aaron Jones for me, I think he enters the year as the starter. I think Chicago's defense is going to be pretty improved. They did bring in Grady Jarrett in the middle of that defensive line. I'm going to throw Aaron Jones into the dub flex category for now. I think I'm going to throw DeAndre Swift. I mean, he's going to get a lot of work off the rip, but Minnesota's defense is a very, very good one. And they went out and added both Jonathan Allen and Javon Hargrave to their defensive line, which is going to make it even harder to run against them. So while I do like Swift's volume floor, I'm actually going to throw him into the shaky flex category for this. There are going to be matchups where Chicago plays against much lesser teams, and I think DeAndre Swift is going to find himself in the feels good, if not even the must-start category, but this is a really tough opening game to try to exploit here. So, I like Swift more than these guys most likely, but at the same time, Swift, I don't feel great about him in my lineup given the matchup. For Jordan Mason, he's also going to be a shaky flex. We don't know what the work is actually going to be split up here for Minnesota and Chicago, and there's definitely a world where Jordan Mason just gets like 10 kind of useless carries. If they're not within the 3-yard line, if he doesn't get that carry, then he might just have a useless fantasy day. So I don't feel great about flexing him. He's going to go into the shaky flex category for me. The other guys, the Roshan's going to be a rather not, and Kyle Mononga is going to be a cone until he shows us otherwise. Cincy, Cleveland, we've got a little bit of a weather report here. Winds around 10 miles per hour sustained. That's maybe enough to mention, but probably not quite enough to have any real impact. Yep, that's not something that we are too worried about here. So Chase Brown, of course, is going to go right into the must-start category. Taj Brooks will throw into the cones. Judkins will not be playing, so it leaves the backfield completely open to Sampson and Jerome Ford. And I've got to say, especially with the matchup, you're playing against Cincinnati. Joe Flacco is a check-down artist right now. They're going to have to throw the ball a lot. The running backs get a ton of targets, and I think Jerome Ford will start the year in like a 65% split. It feels crazy, but like Jerome Ford's going into the James Cook, Omarion Hampton category based on matchup, based on game script, based on Joe Flacco being the guy, and based on the fact that this backfield right now is quite literally just these two. It's just Jerome Ford, it's just Dylan Sampson. And I expect Dylan Sampson to get, a little bit of run here. Like I expect him to play in some passing downs. I expect him to get somewhere between 6 to 10 carries. So I don't think he's like the worst start either. He's going to be a shaky flex for me, probably more so at the end of the tier. We don't know exactly how this is going to split up, but for me, I'm putting Dylan Sampson down here in shaky flex. I feel really good about Jerome Ford starting this week, to be honest. Denver at Tennessee. So we've got a chance for a shower. We'll need to see radar closer to game time for any specifics. So they are on weather alert, which might mean more run action here. But Denver's such a good defense that it's tough to really like project Tony Pollard to have a great game. I think the volume is going to be there, obviously, with no Tajay Spears. I think Julius Chestnut is the number 2 on the depth chart right now. So with Tony Pollard, I mean, I'm going to throw him into the dub flex category because I think he ends up getting 20 touches in this game. But the defense is just a ferocious one, as you could see. A lot of red there. Tony Pollard, his line is still pretty high, though. 61.5 rushing yards, 14.5 receiving yards, 2.5 receptions. That's just pure volume alone. He should see 85 to 90% of the workload here. But again, not a great matchup here. J.K. Dobbins and R.J. Harvey are interesting. You have a pretty good matchup against the Tennessee front line. You have a good game script. I do think that despite J.K. Dobbins being number 1 on their depth chart and R.J. Harvey being listed behind him, I do think Sean Payton's going to come out and have some like fun, schemed up targets and plays for R.J. Harvey. So I'm actually going to put R.J. Harvey in the dub flex category. I'm going to put J.K. Dobbins. I think you can make the case if it's full PPR. I don't hate him as a flex for week 1. I think the matchup is there. The game script is there. They're 7.5 point favorites. Week 1, especially like with the veterans, these are guys that pretty much get shoved into the lineup. So you know what? I'm going to throw Dobbins into the dub flex category as well. I feel pretty good about him in my lineup. Detroit at Green Bay. Josh Jacobs, obviously a must start. Jahmyr Gibbs, of course, a must start. With David Montgomery, let's see what the lines are. 41.5 rushing yards. We don't expect him to catch a ton of passes here. I do think there's a chance. Listen, like Green Bay, they got Micah Parsons. They get rid of Kenny Clark. I could see their rush defense really not being that good. I could see, where everybody's like super hyped up on Green Bay. Everybody's off of Detroit because they're losing their coordinators and their center. I could see Detroit as 2.5 point underdogs, which I think is crazy, coming out here and just playing fucking bully ball. So at least in the beginning of the season, I do think they're going to try to use David Montgomery in the same capacity, a little bit less than they did last year. But I feel pretty good about starting David Montgomery right now. 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks into the season might be a different conversation being had here, but I feel pretty good about him scoring a touchdown in week 1 and Detroit really trying to kind of, quiet the naysayers throughout the summer and really establish themselves in that fucking bully ball situation. Marshawn Lloyd not playing. Emmanuel Wilson, he's going to go into the cone cat. Houston and LA. So you've got a really good run defense in Houston versus Kyren Williams. And I'm going to be honest with you, Kyren Williams is a guy with a pretty high rushing yard line. I think he'll get a lot of volume here. Matt Stafford expected to play in this one. He's not going to be a must start for me. He's going to go into the feels good category because similar to like Tony Pollard on a better offense, will get likely 20 plus touches in this one. If they're on the goal line, he will get a lot of that work. But this is a scary Houston defense, man. I could see him averaging, 3.5 yards per carry in this one. And if he gets into the end zone, then sure, he's going to put up, 15, 16 points. But if not, it might be a little bit of a subpar outing for Kyren Williams. Nick Chubb going against the Rams front. Like the Rams front should be a lot better this year. They were a very young offensive line. Kobe Turner, Braden Fisk, obviously Jared Verse. They should be pretty ferocious up front. So Nick Chubb, while he is technically the starter and he should get a decent amount of run in this one, he's going to be a shaky flex at best for us. Everybody else is pretty much going into the cone category. Woody Marks, I think, could be interesting down the stretch, but there's no way you start him in week one. Jarquez Hunter, obviously cone. Damian Pierce is also going to be, I could see him getting a handful of touches too, but you're definitely not starting him in week one. Indy at Miami, Devon Achane expected to play. We don't have any practice reports for these teams yet. Typically, the way this works, and it's unfortunate for the running back ranking video, the way I planned it is like I want to get them out Wednesday and Thursday because obviously you guys have Thursday night football players that you want to know whether or not to put into your matchups. But with that, practice reports for teams that play on Sunday, you get reports for Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And a team doesn't typically play until around 11 a.m. A team doesn't typically practice throughout the week until, 10 a.m., 11 a.m. We don't get the official practice reports till after that. So by the time I get those, this video will already be filmed, recorded, and probably uploaded to you. So we will be missing some practice data, unfortunately, for the running back video. We kind of just have to go with the word out there from most of reports, which are Devon Achane is supposed to be ready for week one. So he's going straight into the must start category for me. It's a good matchup against Indy. Devon Achane, 4.5 receptions, 62.5 rushing yards, 30.5 receiving yards. Like, come on now. Jonathan Taylor, of course, is a must start. Everybody behind them, like Jalen Wright's obviously out. DJ Giddens is a cone. Ollie Gordon is someone that I think obviously needs to get into the conversation here. I know there's been a lot of hype about him. I know everyone's kind of just trying to put him into that like Raheem Mostert role. And I do think his skill set really complements Devon Achane's. And I think there's a world where maybe he gets a goal line score in this one, gets a handful of touches. But if Achane's healthy, I don't know if you guys remember this last year, but Achane twisted his ankle at one point last year. And the reports were like, oh, there's a good chance he doesn't play. And then he played and got 25 touches and absolutely ripped it up. I could see it going down that path as well. So while I don't think Ollie Gordon is not startable, I think if Achane is active, then I would consider him someone I would rather not play. Probably top of the tier. I'd be okay playing him. If it was super, super desperate. If Achane's active, there's no way I expect Ollie Gordon to get a big workload here. So he's going to go into the rather not. If Achane is a surprise and active for Sunday's game, which honestly I don't think would be absolutely crazy either, then Ollie Gordon would move immediately into honestly the must-start category. He'd be a top 15 guy for me because they got nobody else in that backfield right now. KC Chargers, we already did. Vegas, New England. Ashton Genty is going to go into the must-start category for me. He's going to go into the end of the tier, but, let's not overthink it. Relatively good matchup, though I will say these numbers are going to be very outdated within a couple of weeks because New England will get Christian Barmore back this year. New England did sign Milton Williams, so they have a very, very underrated good combo there in the middle of their defensive line. It will be tough to run against them. The rest of the players, Raheem Mostert's going to go into cone. Antonio Gibson's going to go into cone. Travion Henderson, I think, is a dub flex off the rip. It's a good matchup against Las Vegas. We saw throughout the preseason that they're going to have some stuff schemed up for that man's. Ramondre should get some work too. It could be a good game script for them. I'm going to throw him into the shaky flex category, though I wouldn't really, I don't know that I'd blame anyone for putting him into the flex if you're double flexed up and it's a deeper league or something like that. He should, again, we talk about the veterans in the beginning of the year where if there's a time, the first month of the season is where a lot of coaches kind of force these older veterans into a bigger role, and then they start to lose that over the course of the year. So I think Ramondre Stevenson is absolutely flex worthy, but again, he's a shaky flex as opposed to someone I feel good about. Giants, Washington. This will be one of the more polarizing games, most likely. So Tyrone Tracy's a guy I feel really good about having him in my lineup. It's a really good matchup. They're going to have to score a lot of points, which should lead to a lot of targets for him. I think he'll be the main guy here, especially in the beginning of the season. Cam Scatabo, I think they're probably going to split backup duties between Singletary and Cam Scatabo. So For right now, I think both of them have to be into the cone category. Although, next week, Cam Scatabo could play 30% of the snaps, and then we see him move into like the rather not, and then maybe into the shaky flex. But I think he missed too much time this August for me to feel anywhere near comfortable about his week 1 role. For Washington, Jeremy McNichols is not in here, even though he was listed as the number 2 running back on the depth chart. I don't think that's real. We saw them come out and say, listen, the depth chart is Austin Eckler, Jeremy McNichols, Christopher Rodriguez, Ja'Cory Krosky-Moret. Don't press about that. I think at the end of the day, Eckler is like the most reliable guy. He's a veteran, so they put him there. And it's a good matchup, but I think Eckler's main role will still be, maybe he starts, maybe he gets 8 carries, but I think for the most part, he's going to develop into the pass catching role. So I feel okay about him, but honestly, he's more of a shaky flex for me. Ja'Cory Krosky-Moret's obviously been like the very, very highly anticipated guy for the season. His lines right now, 23.5 rushing yards, not great for week 1. So he's definitely going to be in the shaky flex category for me. I do think there's a world though that he ends up just breaking free in this game and becomes like the clear starter, though I think we probably need to pump the brakes for the very, very beginning of the season. Not someone that I don't think is startable, but I do think, obviously, there needs to be caution with the wind here. Rodriguez is the guy that I'm surprised they listed him under Jeremy McNichols, because I do think he is the starter there, or at least early downs right now. He's the one that gets the nod over McNichols, and him and JCM will be kind of battling for those early down carries. Not sure how it shakes out, but I'd obviously much rather just kind of shoot on the upside of Bill there. Jets and Pittsburgh, an over-under of 38.5. This is going to be disgusting and sloppy, and I want so little of this game if possible. Breece and Braylon Allen will both get work. I barely look at Breece Hall as a dub flex anymore. I think if you drafted him, you probably have to start him in that flex zone, but I think Pittsburgh's going to fucking eat that man up. It's going to be a slow offense. It's going to be a low-scoring game. Listen, I think if you have him, you kind of have to start him, but he's going to be a shaky flex for me. And I think Braylon Allen week 1 against the Steelers are a team that are tough to run against, right? They're tough. If you're Braylon Allen who will get 10 carries, not a ton of pass catching work, like that's a team you could beat really good run defenses just via PPR involvement, which I think Breece Hall will have. So Braylon Allen will be a rather not in week 1. Isaiah Davis is obviously a cone. The Steelers' backfield is a little bit trickier. Kenneth Gainwell is going to go right into the cone category. Caleb Johnson, unfortunately, this summer's not been great for at least the beginning part of the season for him. So he's not even a shaky flex for me. He's going to go right into the rather not category. I don't want to start him in week 1. I want to see how this backfield develops. When it comes to Jaylen Warren, he will get the nod as the starter for the running back position there in the backfield for Pittsburgh. But the Jets defense is going to be a lot better this year than it was last year. They just kind of gave up and it just tanked the season. But I think going into the year, at least the beginning of the year, they will have a very, very stiff defense to run against. So with Warren, he'll have involvement, probably 12 to 15 touches. He'll probably catch 3 or 4 passes. Hard to project him for a touchdown. Let's see what his lines are right now. 54.5 rushing yards, 20.5 receiving yards. I'm going to absolutely slam the lower on that prop for him. But based on that, we'll throw him into the dub flex category. Wow, that is such a high number for him. That's going to be my play of the week. The lower 54.5 rushing yards is going to be my play of the week. And if you get onto MGM and you use code BDGE when you first sign up, you're going to get up to 15 hundo back if you take an L on your first slip. All right, so use code BDGE when you sign up on there. Go take Jaylen Warren lower than 54.5 rushing yards. And the last game of the slate, we have Seattle at San Francisco. We're not going to overthink this one. We're going to put C-Mac right into the must-start category. His props are crazy right now. 72.5 projected rushing yards, 34.5 projected receiving yards. I believe that is number 1 amongst the backs in the slate. Everybody else is unusable for week 1. All the Niners running backs. Let's move to the Seattle backfield, though. I do think Kenneth Walker comes out of the gate as like the dude. He will be the dude. So I'm going to put him into the must-start category. I don't think there's a way that if you drafted him, he's not in your lineup. San Francisco ranked horrendously against the run last year. I don't love their personnel on defense, to be honest, but getting Robert Saleh back, I do think they should be a much stiffer defense all around. So maybe a little bit of a wash there, but overall, Kenneth Walker is going to get in there. Zach Charbonnet, really, really hard to throw him into your lineup in week 1 based on the fact that we don't know what the splits are going to end up being. He could end up getting 40% of the work in this backfield, but to me, he's somewhere between the shaky flex and the rather not category. And to be honest, in week 1, I really rather not, but I'm probably going to throw him into the shaky flex category. So there you have it. All 16 games, every running back tiered up, double cheeked up on a Wednesday morning. I will be doing this same exact video for wide receivers tomorrow, and then every Wednesday and Thursday going forward for the remainder of the season. So if you enjoyed this video, Subscribe to the channel to get the wide receiver version as well as next week's and the weeks after that. If you just want my rankings, obviously I just threw guys into tiers here. Again, the must-start categories, these are just guys that like you just have to get them into your lineups. That's just the way I feel about everybody in that tier there. I think it's useless to have conversations of like, oh, do I start fucking, Kenneth Walker over Chuba Hubbard? Just figure it out. Just get those guys into your fucking lineup. If you do want the numerical ordering the rankings, I will be personally doing that again every single week throughout the rest of the season. If you sign up to be a Big Dog member, BDGE.co, that will get you my weekly rankings, that will get you the waiver wire rankings every Tuesday with fab suggestions on how much to bid, that will get you access to the private Q and Assault live stream where I'm answering any of your questions for the week every Saturday afternoon. So you get all of that if you become a Big Dog member, all right? BDGE.co, go sign up there. Rankings for week 1 are live right now. If you have any feedback or ways that you would change this video, please let me know, but I'm very happy how the first version of this came out. Tomorrow, wide receivers, all right? Love y'all. Smoochies.